Well, my background, my family, uh, I'm the only child to Helen and J.C. Wood. My mother raised her niece as my sister, so I grew up with a sister. We grew up on 314 South Lord Street, which we never forget. Uh, as a little girl growing up, I had a lot of playmates because on that street was a lot of playmates to play with. Uh, I attended St. Philip's Episcopal Church. We used to walk to church, and it was probably about 6 or 7 blocks from where I lived. Uh, I went past Livingstone College and then went to church there on Caldwell Street. Um, we had about 7 families or 8 families in our church. We were real close because it was a small church. Um, like I said, we walked to church. We also had a member that lived down the street that would take us to church sometimes, Mrs. Yates. And she was glad enough to pick us up and take us to church. But on pretty days, my mama would have us walk to church. And I enjoyed doing that. Uh, at the church, like I said, we were small, but we had a good time because we all knew each other, and we knew each other from the neighborhoods. Most of the families that went to that church, they were teachers, professors, uh, people that just did everyday jobs. My mother was a teacher. My daddy was self-employed. He did a lot of work for the people in the country club area. So we knew a lot of people that went to St. Luke's Church, or he did. Um, I remember one time, being in the Christmas pageant. Um, I was little, I was about the youngest one in the church. I remember being an angel in the church for the Christmas pageant, and my halo kept falling off. So it was kind of, funny for me to kind of fix that thing up there. But we did a lot in the church. We'd had vacation Bible school. We had Christmas pageants. We had Easter egg hunts. So it wasn't any different to me than another church. Because when we had vacation Bible school, we would have children from the neighborhood who would come to our church. A long time ago, I lived on we call that the west side. And if churches had vacation Bible schools, we went. You could have had 20 children, 75 children. It was just according to how many wanted to come that week. And sometimes we would have about 25 at St. Philip's for vacation Bible school. We would have maybe a little teaching, a Bible study. Then we would have a break and go outside, come back and play. And like I said, the best part to me was the refreshments. It was just delightful to get that orange punch and maybe a snowball or, chips. Across the street from the church was a store. So they could run across to the store and pick up something for us to eat. My mother in the church, she was the secretary in the church. They would have meetings, and when they had church meetings, we would go to different people's houses and have breakfast. And that was nice too, because we would go once a month and eat breakfast at a certain member's house. And of course, the children had a table of their own. And while the grown-ups of the church would have meetings, and she kept a good account of the meetings that they had. Uh, she let you know who was there and who was not there. And, growing up, I did go to a all-black elementary school, Monroe Street School. So it wasn't that many children in my church that went, it wasn't that many children in the elementary school that went to my church. Because like I said, it was just not that many families in our church. So, and then I work for my first job, real job, I say, was working for a loan company. I worked there 7 years in 1976. And I call him my boss. My boss told me, he said, Dora, the reason that I hired you was because I needed a black to work in my company. Back then, Salisbury had no mall, so I worked uptown. Right there, Belts used to be uptown, in that, from what we call the square, maybe 2 or 3 doors down. I worked beside Belts. And people would say, you have the best seat in the house. I said, yes, I do, because I can see people going to Belts. I see when you park. I see when you stop for the light. I had the best seat in town. Shortly after I start working, no, shortly before I start working for the loan company, my daddy died. So he never did get to see me work uptown, which he would have been proud to say, my daughter is the first black to be uptown working, because with him, he was more so like a janitor. He would clean windows. He would clean most of the windows at the stores uptown. The big windows that they have, he did most of them. So he was real popular as far as cleaning. He had help, and that's what he did. Basically, growing up in Salisbury was fun. It was a good experience. Um, I remember um, I remember we used to go to the movies in the summertime. We could get bottle tops. If you got 6, you could get in the movie free. And so we would gather up those tops so we could go to the movies on Thursday. We went to the movies, and we had 2 movie centers, the Capitol and the Center. The Maroney Theater, I think, might have been the Capitol or the Center. I can't remember now. But it was one that was located over here on East Inner Street, and that's where we would go for our movies. Everybody, bunch of children from the West End, East End, all over, black and white, we would go to the movies and get in free. Back then, if I wanted to go maybe just to the movies with my sister or my cousins, I had to sit up top. A lot of times you're little and you just think that's the right thing to do. And that's what I thought. Until one day I went into the Woolworth store with my mother, and I was walking by and I saw 2 sinks. And I could read pretty good, and I saw color and I saw white. And I said, Mama, I said, which one do I drink from? And she said, well, you would drink from this one. And of course, we came in through the back door to transact business or do business at the Woolworth that was there. And I said, oh. And she said, well, you're a little colored girl. I said, okay. It wasn't that bad. I guess my mother and my father would see stuff on TV. We played together with our friends on the street. We had a recreation center that we went to growing up. So you played with your own kind. The YMCA, which is on Fulton Street, they had a swimming pool, but it wasn't open to us. So we had to go maybe other places. Then they opened up Lincoln Pool, which was open up to us. Like I said, it wasn't that bad. I went to Monroe Street School, all black. I would hear things, like that morning. My mama woke me up on a Sunday morning. We're getting ready to go to church. She said, Dora, Virginia, Irene, she said, there's been a bombing at a church. I said, oh, 4 little girls have been killed. 4 little colored girls have been killed. And then we walked to church. And walking to church, it was just quiet. No one said anything. Things happened in our neighborhood, in our state, that, we wondered, why was this going on? And then, all my mama could tell me was because they're black or they attended a black church. And you have people who do not like the black people. And you wondered why. I was in the 7th grade, and that's when Dr. King was assassinated. I remember we had maybe 2 white teachers at our school. Well, the next day, they didn't come to school. Then we had a group to come maybe protesting and wanting to stand up for human rights, our black rights. Well, I was in high school then, and they had the speech at Morris Chapel Church, which was around the corner from me. So me and my friends decided to go. And they went on and on. We're going to march. We're going to march to Washington. We're going to leave tomorrow. And, that might have been a Thursday. We had to go to school on that Friday. We're going to leave, and we're going to come by and get you from your school. And if you want to go, you are welcome to go. Well, we was at the rally, I guess, and I went to school the next day, and all my friends, we were talking. Are you going? Yeah, I don't know if I'm going or not. You going? I don't know. Well, people had excuses, and I never forget. I went to the office. The principal said, if you're going to march, you need to come with an excuse. And we were calling our parents and everything and see if it was okay. So I called my mama. She was at school. I said, Mom, will it be okay if I marched to, she said, to Lexington, on the highway? She said, absolutely not. And I said to her, but Mom, Cynthia's going. She said, well, Cynthia's not my child. You're not going. I went back and I told the principal, no, I can't go. But thank the Lord, it poured down, raining that afternoon. Their parents had to come pick them up. So I was being aware of what was going on as far as race. My parents brought me up to treat everybody the same. Like I said, my daddy, he worked for white people. So they were his friends. And he talked about them. He would go fishing with them. Uh, he kept families like the Norval families. He kept their children. And, they tell me today, they said, well, JC would spank us just like he spanked you. I said, well, my daddy never spanked me. I said, my mama did all the spanking. I was a daddy's girl. So growing up in Salisbury it was okay. It was trying to figure out the race relations and just where I felt fit in. In 1969, they closed our high school, Price High School. Now, we loved it. They came over that day and they talked to the school board, talked to the whole school, and told us that they will be closing Price High School and we would have to go to boarding, which is now Salisbury High. Well, you had some people mad. I'm not going to school. My mama told me, she said, you're going. I had a lot of transitions that year. I had moved from 314 South Lord Street, which I had been there all my life, to 1023 Old Plank Road, which is right behind Livingstone College. I had transitioned from one high school to another. I also welcomed a little cousin. Irene had Michael, so he was new in the house. 69 was just a different year. I was growing up. Someone asked me, well, did we have a hard time transitioning to Salisbury High? I said, I don't think we did, not with our class, because in 69, we also came to St. Luke's. The students that went to St. Luke's went to Salisbury High. I knew them and they knew me because we would see each other at church and then we would see each other at school. So our class kind of got along a lot. We had maybe little arguments every now and then, but it was other schools in the area that were really having hard times. And we were too, because, we had to get used to them and they had to get used to us. And, some of our teachers had gone to boarding. And, we had teachers over there that, I thought they were hard. I'm like, oh God, these are some hard teachers. But I remember a lot of them. I remember Miss Whitener, she was my teacher. I remember John Brown, he was one of my teachers. My other teachers were black. I had Coach Stout was my homeroom teacher. So I liked him, he was the coach. And plus he coached football. So, he was okay, So we kind of looked into athletics. That kind of kept our school together. It brought us together, the athletics. We even had a powder puff football team. And, I played on that team. And, we just didn't care. We were just fighting and everything. But, it wasn't black or white. It was juniors against seniors. But yeah, growing up in Salisbury was just eye-opening because it was so much going on. You heard about bombings, you heard about, killings. I remember going to school with a guy, a boy, because we were in junior high, we were young. And his name was Winton Tracy. He lived on the east side of town. He was in my class. He was kind of a heavy black boy. And what happened was, neighborhoods were being integrated. he ended up playing with a little white boy. I don't know what happened. I don't know. I can't remember if it was an argument or something. But the little white boy's daddy came out and shot him. I remember that. As like I said, we were young then, and he was young. And you wondered, why? These are children playing. And I remember, saying that the man came out on the sidewalk and just shot him dead. So, it was just a learning and a going through phase for me growing up in Salisbury. Well, the Jim Crow laws to me were the laws where you had colored water fountains, you had white water fountains. On city buses, even growing up, I could not sit in the front of the bus. I had to sit in the back of the bus. Summertime, we used to catch the Trailway bus, which Trailways were located down here on Main Street. In the summertime, my mama used to take me to Harlem and visit my great aunt. So I would go to Harlem, New York, for 2 weeks and visit her. On the bus, catching the bus or going to the bus station, in the front of the station was real nice. That was for the white people. We went to the back. We purchased our tickets, but we had to wait in the back, a little back room. And I could just see it. It looked dark. It looked not clean to me, but this is where we had to wait until they called for our, we going to New York, our destination. So ended up going to the back of the bus, and I never forget one of the men said to Mama, "It's okay. You may sit up front. You have 2 small children." And she said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yes." Now, some places weren't as stickler to the Jim Crow laws because it was something I guess they felt that they, don't worry about it, you're okay. And we stayed up front. Like I said, I did go to Harlem. I enjoyed going to Harlem because I got to go to the Apollo Theater. And I saw Gladys Knight and the Pips for the first time. I enjoyed Harlem. I could see a lot of the black people. I could go to or go past. I never went to them. I was a little girl. I went past the nightclubs. My aunt was the Lady Mavis, and she sung in a nightclub. So she sung she said Duke Ellington and all of the famous singers and blues singers. Well, okay, but I'm still a little girl, these are just, as I got older, I knew who they were. Jim Crow, going to the movies, we had to sit up top. We couldn't sit down below. It used to be a place on Main Street that I loved to go. My mama used to have teacher meetings or PTA meetings, and my daddy would take her. And he said, "Well, not gonna cook today. We're going to Zesto's." Zesto's was like a drive-in, something like Sonic. But it was a little building and had a little counter inside where you could eat, but we couldn't eat inside. He would go, and they had the best food. He would go get our hamburgers and our French fries and our drink, and we would sit in the car and eat it. We could not go inside. But that was okay because that's what I thought was doing the right thing. Time went on. A lot of places we could not go into the front of the building. We had to go into the side to order our food. We couldn't sit down and eat. And to me, sure, I thought maybe that was the right thing to do. Because it was just done. This is what we do. Now, we did have places that we could go to eat. It used to be chicken place, Frankie's Chicken Shack. They had the best chicken. And we could go there, and sit inside, or you could sit outside. But that was a place to go, that we could go inside and eat. So, yeah, the Jim Crow laws, they were just unfair to me. What was told to us, as I remember, like I said, they had meetings at church. And the preacher that preached at our church at 9 o'clock preached here at 10. I remember him telling the congregation, or telling them at a meeting, your congregation is so small that it would be better for you all to come to St. Luke's and fill in there. It wasn't a problem, really, but I remember my mama writing in her book, integration is coming. And she was right, because eventually we had to integrate. We had a small congregation. Plus, with him preaching here, there at 9 and coming here at 10, it probably was a whole lot for him. Coming here, the families did come. And we came on a Sunday at 10 o'clock, because that was what time church started. And, we were welcomed by the pastor and him letting them know we're in the congregation. And we stood. We sit back here, my mom and my dad, and that was our place. That was our seat back there. And, other people were in the front and, just all around. So we were welcomed. Some of the families knew my daddy, and, they knew me growing up. I knew some of the students that went to Salisbury High. So it really wasn't a lot of friction then. Well, I have found that healing from the past, teaching school, and learning about my past, seeing things firsthand, knowing my history has really helped me heal. Teaching it to children and letting them see that what was done back then is not the way it should be. I had to talk to my students about slavery, talk to them about Jim Crow laws, lynchings. I had an opportunity to go to Charleston. And we saw the marketplace, which the marketplace was where when they came from Africa or from overseas, they would drop them off. And the marketplace was where they kept the slaves. So I got to see that. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm walking through these walls, and, you know, our slaves were brought here in order for them to be sold on the market. Uh, I've always said when you learn your past and you learn what went on and why, you kind of heal a little bit. Not a lot, but you heal because you know where you've been. And you let that past help you. Because if I did not know a lot about my past and why they did what they did, or why, or what they did, you can't heal too good. Teaching really helped me because my students, they were at that age where, you know, they looked at it like, well, that's not right. They didn't say, oh, well, she's better than me, and I would say, no, it's not right. So it helps you heal when you know a little bit about your past or a lot about your past and why things happened the way they did. You know, we can change for the better as far as race relations is to know a little bit or know about that other race. In teaching, I taught Hispanics, I taught Laotians, I taught Africans, I taught blacks, I taught whites. And teaching them, I learned a little bit about each one. And if we learn from other people about what they have been through, that helps you out a whole lot. Because um, I can talk to a white person, and they can tell me what they've been through, which hasn't always been what I think it should be. I'm thinking, okay, you've had it made. You're white because you can do these things. But then listening to them is different. And I think that, you know, even being with people and seeing what, not for, who, but, or what, but just that person themselves. You find a whole lot about you. Say, oh, I didn't know that happened to you, or yeah, this happened to me a long time ago growing up. Well, I grew up here and that same thing was going on. So it's not always one race. It's been done to several races. Like I said, I worked at Walmart and I dealt with all kinds of race relations problems. And, not really race relations, but just how people treated that person because they were older, because they were black, because they were younger, because there was a man, there was a woman. So you had all kinds of problems going on. And I just would look and say to myself, working here has been an eye opener for me. I remember it was Halloween, and I had a lady come through the line. I said, oh, you're buying a lot of candy. Yes, it's Halloween, she said. She said, and I bet you don't know why we celebrate Halloween. I said, I bet you I do. I used to teach Sunday school here at St. Luke's. I said, well, Halloween is the day before All Saints' Day, which is called really All Hallows Eve. we celebrate the dead, which is All Saints Day. Long time ago, children would dress up, not here in America, but maybe overseas, and they would dress up as the dead. And they were given little tokens, apples and, fruit and stuff. I said, so we have brought it to America. We call it Halloween, and we give candy. And she just looked at me, and I'm like, to myself, I told you I knew. So, I got the feeling that because I probably was black, I'm black, and I'm working, as a cashier, that I did not know what was what. So it gave me the sense to say, Dora, speak up for yourself. Let people know that you know what's going on. That you're not just sitting back being taken advantage of or letting somebody think they know more than I know. Because I'm going to always come back with something, to try to defend myself and defend my race, or anybody. I say, oh, no, 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 no. That, she might be Hispanic. I had little children would come to me when I was working there and hold on to me. Lady said, why is she holding on to you like that? I said, well, she knows I teach school. And she knows my face, so she's waiting on her mother. So you get a lot of, I think that once you know about another race and you see where they're being and what they're going through with, it helps you heal. And you can help other people heal too by, letting them know it's okay to be. I used to tell my children, it's okay. I said, well, she's a little blacker. Oh, Miss Wood, I'm not black. And like I said earlier, I told my daddy, I said, Daddy, you're black. He said, I'm not black, I'm brown. I said, but that's the race that you're called, just like white and black. It took him a while to kind of gather that, but he did. So I let children know it's okay to be the color that you are. Be proud in it. Be proud of where you come from. Know where you're coming from. Just take pride in who you are as a person. And that helps us heal, because if I went around, now, when I was little, my dolls were white. I got a little walking doll one year, and she walked with me, because, that was what we had back then, and she was black. So my walking doll was black. But a long time ago, we had little white dolls. So some people say, well, we need to relate to what we are and how we look. And that's what we did. Well, like I told you, we had talked earlier, and I was telling you about some members of St. Philip's. Mrs., well, I call her Miss Koontz. She was Dr. Elizabeth Duncan Koontz. She was my godmother. She and my mother were good friends growing up. And my mama would tell me, well, she called her Libby. She said, Libby doesn't have any children. And I asked her to be your godmother. I said, oh, you did? If you knew me as a little girl growing up, you knew that was my godmother. Because she called me Dora, Virginia. And that's the reason some people call me Dora, Virginia, because My mama called me Dora, Virginia. She called me Dora, Virginia. And she had a little nickname for me. She called me, I love sweet potato pie. And she called me sweet potato sometimes. Sweet potato, then I knew, okay, I'm winning brownie points. But she herself, as being a teacher, she taught special education. She came to become a famous lady. She was the first black president of the National Education Association. She traveled overseas. And when she did, she would send me or bring me back things from Japan, Switzerland, little things that I kept, little dolls, little purses. And, I said, Miss Koontz, she's been around. So, but then like I told him, I knew her as Miss Koontz. And she, one day I saw her uptown, that brings that back. She was walking uptown one day. She had on sunglasses. And she said, well, hey, Dora, Virginia. I said, hey, Miss Koontz. We hugged. I said, where you going? She said, well, I'm going, might be going to get me something to eat. I said, you want me to go? Well, she said, you can. I said, why do you have on them sunglasses? Everybody knows who you are. She said, Dora, Virginia, the sun is out. I didn't have on sunglasses. She said, Dora, Virginia, the sun is out. I said, okay. But I just, have fond memories of her. She was a member here at St. Luke's. Like I said, she was a member of President Nixon's cabinet. When I was in college, she would write me letters. And she told me, she said, Dora, I will be leaving Nixon's cabinet. And I came home. I said, Mama, why is she writing me stuff like that, I said, I really, okay. So I just said, okay, I read it. Sooner or later, they was impeached. And I always would say, she must have knew something. But, she was a good person. She was a good woman. And my mama would tell me, Dora, it's nothing that you can't do. And I was like, Mama, are you sure? And she said, yeah. She said, you're like your daddy. He's a talker. And you too will stand up for yourself. She said, that's what you do. And, I believe that. And so I've stood up for myself. I've stood up for what is right. I've talked to my children at school about what is right and what they should do as far as race relations. So it's just been an experience for me, and I love to talk about it.